Hello and welcome to another Read With Me. I am Isabel Bedell, and I'm here to read with you another amazing chapter on The Art of Spending Money by Morgan Housel. This is the second, or no, the first chapter. The first video that we did was all about the author's note. We went into the introduction and we got clear on his intentions for this book. His intentions for this book is very similar to Psychology of Money, where he doesn't pigeonhole you in a specific category, which I think a lot of finance books do. He gives you more of like the general consensus of the collective, what the entire world is talking about, and how you can actually dissect the specifics of what it is that, money could mean to you based on how he story tells, how he has a conversation with it. And I personally love that because I don't like to be told how to do things. I like to see how things are done, and then if it works out for me, then it works out for me. But when society tries to put rules on you, when the collective is being so over dramatic or over extending themselves on the negative spectrum, I believe that's where things go really wrong. So I have a lot of great energy from this book. I really do believe that when things are done in a passive way, where it's kind of storytelling, it kind of just gives you more of the liberty to make a decision on your own based on the information that is given to you. You are a grown person, you have the ability to make decisions on your own. You have a mind, a heart, and you have a will. You have that ability. You wouldn't be human if you weren't. I mean, you could be AI, and who knows, maybe you are, but at this point, I believe that as human beings, we have the authority to make our own decisions. We have the ability to make our own decisions, and that is what I'm commending everyone to do. So, in the comments, put what you believe money means to you. What does money mean to you? It can be from all types of backgrounds, all types of reasons, and we celebrate you for that. It's courageous to share your opinion, especially if you're helping others in the positive light. And that's what this community is all about, the Let One Voice community. We're all about freedom, we're all about expansion, we're all about personal and financial freedom. So, if you believe in that, welcome. Happy to have you here. And without further ado, this is going to I know it's going to be a juicy chapter, so let's get into it, okay? All behavior makes sense with enough information. Most debates about what's worth spending money on are actually just people with different life experiences talking over each other. I agree. An important question is, and I love this question, what have you experienced that I haven't that makes you believe what you do? And would I believe the same if I experienced it with you, what you have? It applies to so many things in life, including money. The most important topic in spending money, one that's the cause of so much financial frustrations and disappointment, is that there's no right way to do it. There are no universal laws of of what kind of spending will make everyone happy and fulfilled. What I like spending money on might make no sense to you. My fears might be your joys. Your goal might be the thing I most want to avoid. And there's a saying that never make fun of someone for mispronouncing a word because it means they learned it from reading. As a corollary, never make fun of how someone spends their money because they learned it from living. Everyone is a product of their own unique past, and to understand why people spend the way they do, you have to dig deep into their life experiences. My brother-in-law, he's a social worker. He works with kids from the lowest levels of abject poverty and from broken homes who are pushed in and pushed out of the foster system. A lot of these kids struggle at school. Their behavior is poor. They skip class, they don't pay attention, they get into fights on the playground. They can't focus on the future. It is easy for people to not only criticize these kids' behavior, but shake their heads in confusion. Why are they acting this way? Why can't you understand that if you behave better, you'll have a better future? Well, how could you possibly think that that's an okay thing to do? But there's a saying inside the foster care system: all behavior makes sense with enough information. Once you understand what some of these kids have dealt with at home, the uncertainty, the lack of security, love, and attention, their behavior begins to make sense. They're in constant survival mode and never learned of the basic social skills other kids take for granted. You don't want to encourage or even justify their behaviors, but once you see the world through their eyes, you quickly understand why someone would make the decision that seems foreign to you and me. All behavior makes sense with enough information, including behavior about the different ways we spend our money. By the late 1920s, America was in the tail end of a full social and economic cycle. The devastation of the World War I was followed by a crippling recession. And then, after a decade of misery, finally, people got to relish an economic boom that gave name to the Roaring Twenties. The Roaring Twenties, they doesn't do it justice. It was an absolute party for a good 5 years. In the mid 1920s, the economy was fueled by cheap debt, a stock market bubble, and a bootlegged liquor. Yeah, I guess liquor was cheap back in the day. In June of 1928, syndicated columnist Robert Killen wrote a newspaper headline that in 14 words described something so simple and important. The more you were snubbed while poor, the more you enjoyed displaying your wealth. That's it. So much of the late 1920s desire to show off wealth with new cars, new clothes, new toys was driven by a reaction to the poverty and uncertainty that preceded it. When you at one time felt held back, then suddenly you feel released. A common reaction is to frantically sprint ahead to make up for the lost time. Historian Frederick Lewis Allen wrote about the era. Like the suddenly liberated vacationist, the country felt that it ought to be in enjoying itself more than it was, and that life was futile and nothing mattered much. But in the meantime, it might as well play, follow the crowd, take up the new toys that were amusing the crowd. People seemed to justify wild, unsustainable spending because they were making up for being snubbed and suppressed during the dour years. It felt as they were righting a wrong, like getting revenge. They weren't spending wildly because they crunched the numbers and determined it was the right thing to do. They were trying to heal an emotional wound. That behavior is timeless and explains so much. That's so good. A close member grew up extremely poor and in a broken home, snubbed in every way. He then became a successful businessman, and when his daughter was preparing to go to college, he told her, pick up the most expensive school you can get into. Sending his daughter to an expensive school was such a powerful symbol of what he had overcome that in his mind, it was almost as if he preferred to pay the most absurd price he could. High tuition was like a social trophy that made him feel great about the arc of his life. Wow, that's deep. If you didn't grow up snubbed or snubbed in a different way, that might make no sense to you. But that's the point. A lot of spending makes no sense until you peel back the onion layers of someone's personality, identifying the specific thing they're trying to accomplish or the hole they're trying to fill. How your past influences your spending, how your past influences your spending decisions can manifest in different ways, with opposite outcomes depending on the person. Tiffany Alici, a former preschool teacher who became a wildly successful financial educator, once said that she suffers from post-traumatic broke syndrome. It's made it's made it hard for her to spend her newfound wealth. She was broke for so long. She says, it was so hard that I'm afraid of going back there. If you try to make sense of spending habits, yours or other people's, you have to start with the understanding that people don't just spend money on things they find fun or useful. Their decisions often reflect the social and psychological experiences of their life. And since life experiences are vary dramatically from person to person, what makes sense to you might seem crazy to me, and vice versa. Spending a ton of money on college degree might feel like a waste to one person, a non-negotiable requirement to another, and the ultimate sign of climbing the social ladder to another. The same product has a very different meaning to different people. To someone who grew up in an old money affluent family, a Lamborghini might be a symbol of a gaudy egotism. To those who grew up with nothing, that car might serve as the ultimate symbol that you've made it. No one should pretend that there's one right answer to these questions because they fill a different psychological need for different people. A lawyer who works 100 hours a week and hates their job may have an urge to spend frivolously in an attempt to compensate for the misery of how their paycheck was earned. Never have I seen money burn a hole in someone's pocket faster than an investment banker receiving their annual bonus. After 12 months of Excel modeling until 3 a.m., you have an urge to prove to yourself that it was all worth it, offsetting what you sacrificed. It's like someone held you underwater for a minute. They do not take a calm breath when they surface. They gasp. A lot of spending is gasping. Related, I have noticed that the most capable of delayed gratification are often those who enjoy their work. The pay might be good, but the urge to compensate for your hard work with heavy spending isn't there. The important point in all of this, most debates about what's worth spending money on are actually just people with different experiences talking over each other as we started this conversation. How much you should spend and why other people spend the way they do starts to make sense when you accept that people who have lived different lives than you have different things that you might. I think it's a sign of deep immaturity to think that because you like spending your money at a certain way, other people should too. It's a sign of deep immaturity to think that because you like spending your money a certain way, other people should too. It's a sign of deep immaturity to think that because you don't value something, no one else should either. That's not how this world works. What's reasonable and fulfilling spending to you might seem pointless to me. What's mandatory to me might seem like a waste to you. The software engineer Billy Marcus says people are not rational. They are rationalizing. Once you understand this simple fact, all the oddest human behavior will suddenly make way more sense. It's why spending money should be viewed as an art, not a science. There are no universal answers on how to do it or or what's worth it. The best way we can do is come up with a broad understanding of how varied people's minds can be and how varied our preferences are for spending money. Psychologist Lisa Feldman Barrett studies where emotions come from. The classic view in psychology is that emotions are deeply ingrained at birth, the result of eons of evolution dictating that what's scary or funny or insulting to me should be the same for you and all humans. Barrett has spent 3 decades showing reality is more complex. She says, Emotions are not built into your brain at birth, she says. They are built by your brain as you need them. Mm. Emotions are not built into your brain at birth. They are built by your brain as you need them. Deep. From the moment you're born, you begin to learn that this thing is scary, the thing is funny, or this thing should make you angry. You're even taught how to respond. Contour your face this way when you're angry to get your point across to another person. The important thing is that emotions are learned. They are a product of the culture and environment we are raised in. She writes, Barrett, she writes, concepts like anger and disgust are not genetically predetermined. Your familiar emotion concepts are built only because you grew up in a particular social context where those emotions are meaningful and useful. And your brain applies them outside of your awareness to construct your experiences. The wild thing is to contemplate how different people's life experiences can be. An impoverished child in Africa grows up learning to be scared of different things than a rich child in California is. A kid from Manhattan grows up to seek joy from different things than a farmer in Iowa. The most basic and seemingly fundamental feelings of joy, fear, shame, and pride vary from culture to culture, family to family, person to person. Behavior that embarrasses you might make me proud. What I fear might be a thrill to you. Your goals might be my nightmares. And it's not just emotions that vary. What's common sense to one culture can seem absurd and backward to another. Psychologist Jonathan Haidt points out that a 25-year-old addressing his father by his first name is perfectly acceptable in America, but deemed morally wrong, universally wrong by other cultures. You find similar gaps when asking basic questions about food preparation, hygiene, how to raise kids, and how to treat your spouse. If you define common sense as truths that everyone agrees on, you'll find it to be rationally different and uncommon, constrained to scientifically objective things like 2 plus 2 equals 4. Author David McRaney notes that consensus realities are mostly the result of geography. All of this leads to extreme differences in people's views over what is worthwhile risk, a fun little experiment, a harmless guilty pleasure, or a fulfilling need. Take an extreme example from the author Rob Henderson, who cycled through 10 different foster homes growing up and went on to receive a PhD in psychology from Cambridge. He writes, a well-heeled student at an elite university can experiment with cocaine and will probably be just fine. A kid from a dysfunctional home with absentee parents is more likely to ride that first hit of meth to self-destruction. This may explain why the 2019 survey conducted by the Cato Institute found that more than 60% of Americans with at least a bachelor's degree were in favor of legalizing drugs, while less than half of Americans without a college degree thought it would be a good idea. Drugs may have a recreational pastime for the rich, but the poor, they are often a gateway to further pain. Wow, that's that's crazy. Back to my brother-in-law, the social worker. He told me a story about trying to convince a poor husband and wife about the value in saving even a small amount of money to avoid being evicted from their apartment the following month. They laughed at me, he said. Oh, you're a future thinker, the husband said, laughing harder. A what? My brother laughed. My brother-in-law said, a future thinker? You have the luxury of thinking about the future. We don't. Our vision of the future is the next 24 hours. And sometimes it's a 5 minute window. Like, we are going to, when are we going to get our next meal? And where are we going to get our next meal? That's as far ahead as we think. They were spending every cent they could as fast as they could, in part because their entire concept of the future was different from what yours or mine might be. There was no common ground on what might be considered common sense. Tom Gaynor, CEO of Markle Group, once told a story about having lunch with his daughter, a public defense lawyer. Asked about a recent case, Gaynor's daughter described a man who walked into a restaurant, ordered a meal, ate it, then tried to pay with a literal monopoly money. Was the guy stupid, a jerk, or just trying to play a joke? Gaynor said. Gaynor asked. She said, Daddy, he was poor and he was hungry. My clients are Zen masters of the right now. There is no past, there is no future. He was just hungry. It's a radical example, but all of us, you, me, everyone, live some version of it. There are so many instances among rich and poor people alike, highlighting the idea that your values are equal to your preferences, and your preferences come from trying to reconcile your current needs with the lessons learned from your unique past experiences. Which brings me to two pieces of advice, both critical to understanding the art of spending money. Number one, don't let anyone tell you what you should or you shouldn't spend money on. There is absolutely no right way. You have to right way. You have to figure out what makes you happy and fulfilled. And we'll talk more about that later. Personal finance is more personal than it is finance, says financial advisor Tim Moore. It's one of the most smartest, most heard quotes ever. Personal finance is more personal than it is finance. A lot of money problems come from people spending or saving money in a way they think they're supposed to be, but that doesn't match their personality. They look for a one-size-fits-all answer to a problem that's deeply personal. It's like going through life for forcing yourself to become someone that you're not. And most people understand, like you and me, if you like Italian food, but my favorite is Mexican, neither of us is right or wrong. It's just a preference. But the logic can go into a window when you extend it to what kind of house you live in, what kind of clothes you wear, when you should retire, how often you should travel or eat at restaurants. No matter how you live, plenty of people, friends, family, coworkers, online trolls are quick, and eager to tell you that you're doing it wrong. It's not until you acknowledge how personal and emotional our relationship with money can be that you realize you're on this journey alone. And maybe your spouse and your kids are part of the equation. But at some point, you have to find your own way, fearless of what others think of it. Number two, be careful judging how other people spend their money. Comedian George Carlin once said, everyone driving slower than you is an idiot, and everyone driving faster than you is a maniac. It's natural to view everyone's decision as wrong when they differ from yours. There are times in this book when I criticize other people's spending decisions, but I try to restrain those criticisms to times when I think it's obvious that someone is spending money in a way that's detrimental to their own happiness. It's one thing if someone doesn't understand the consequences of the decisions they make. They might need help and guidance. It's quite another to criticize someone's decisions only because they're different from yours. It can be hard for someone to understand why you can't see things the way they do. And I get it. I get why this happens. If I make a decision to live a different lifestyle than you do, you might view it as an attack on the decisions that you've made, especially if you have lingering doubts or uncertainty about your decision, which we all do. The danger is that if I criticize how you spend money, I might convince myself that there is a one right way to spend the way I do it. But that might prevent me from being more introspective about my own decisions or wondering if I could do better or trying to understand my own emotions. Judging others requires bullheaded confidence, which can prevent you from growing. A healthy financial philosophy is having respect for others' experiences, an appreciation of your own, and an understanding that all behavior makes sense with enough information. Now, let me tell you another story about respect and admiration. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, going to be the next chapter, the next video. Stay tuned because if you thought this chapter was juicy, okay, and a punch to the face, I think the next one's going to be even better. This one was so good. Let me just end it with a healthy financial philosophy is having respect for others' experiences, an appreciation of your own, and an understanding that all behavior makes sense with enough dun, 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 information. Information. Wow. Such a great chapter, y'all. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, make sure to, do the thing, like, subscribe, let us know what you like. Let us know what you think about money. What does money mean to you? What kind of respect do you have for money? Or if you don't, hey, you know, you're more than welcome to share your thoughts here. We're happy to, be that space for you. And more importantly than ever, you have your own opinion. Make sure to always, always remember that. No one should be telling you what to do, you know, criticizing you for what it is that you desire, want, and need. Information is key. That's why we host these amazing read with me's where we actually cover important books like these, where we're sharing information so we can become more aware. And the more aware that we are, the more understanding we can become of our own selves and others. So, with that in mind, once again, I am Isabel Bedell. This is um, a read with me session. This was chapter 1 of The Art of Spending Money. And I'll see you in the next one where we're going to cover this amazing story about respect and admiration, y'all. I'll see you in the next one. Have a beautiful and blessed day. Talk to you soon. Bye.